I've literally tried to film this so many times, but I either keep crying or like delving way too deep into trauma, and it's like, girl, you know. But anyway, today's International Ace Day. I'm kind of excited. I've always wanted to do something for Ace Day, so I figured I'm just gonna go ahead and like do a Q&A type thing. I've literally just went online, looked up some questions regarding aspecness, and I'm gonna answer them. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. So to be fair, I do identify as being aplatonic, aromantic, and asexual. So I'm going to answer questions about all three. Yes, I know that all three do not fall under the asexual umbrella, and that they are all three separate orientations, but for me, they're so interconnected that when I say ace, I'm kind of referring to being aplatonic aroace. So just know that. Okay, I'm talking about all three. Anyway, so the first question is, when and how did you first learn about asexuality? And I'm just going to put it again all under one. So when plus how did you first learn about asexuality, aromanticism, and aplatonicism? So asexuality, I first learned about it in college and undergrad. It was kind of very okay. I'm like so excited. Okay. I learned about asexuality in undergrad in college. So I would have been what, 2016, I want to say. I don't know. I feel like it was kind of an underwhelming learn for me. It was actually when I first bought my very first journal ever. I never got into journaling before this, but I just had this feeling inside of me that something was different about me and something was wrong about me. And I bought this journal, and I remember I just kept writing down like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I connect with people? I just remember hearing other people talking about dating apps and like being able to swipe and like know who they wanted to date based off, some profile. And I was like, I just look at it and I see nothing and I feel nothing. And in person, I was like, I just feel nothing. And up until this whole point in my life, I've always struggled to make friends. I've always struggled to have any sort of romantic connections. Like I've never kissed anyone, never dated anyone, never any of that. So I just got to a boiling point in undergrad where I was just like, what is wrong with me? And I wrote all this stuff down in my journal. And nothing was making sense. And I just thought, let me Google and see if anybody else knows what I'm talking about. Because at that point, no one in my real life in person was relating to me. So I went to Google, I searched how I was feeling. The term asexual came up, and I was like, I think that's me. To be fair, I did deny it for a long time because they did say it was only 1% of the population. And I was like, there's no way I'm that special. Turns out I am. But yeah, at the time I thought there's no way that's me. And I honestly, it really scared me. Like at first when I saw the term, I did feel a deep sense of comfort just because I was like, okay, I'm not alone. There are others like me. But then reading their experience, it seemed like a lot of people who like weren't craving like love, connection, and belonging in the same way that I was. So it was a lot of people being like, yeah, I'm asexual, but like I don't want relationship, or I don't know. I just was nervous, I guess. Like I just was like, in my mind, because compulsory sexuality, amatonormativity, all that stuff, I was like, well, I need to be normal in order to reach my goals. And for me, my goals was having friends, being married, and being a mom. And I was like, I can't be asexual. But if I'm asexual, that means I'm probably not going to find my person. So at that time, that's how I felt. So I learned about it freshman year. I spent a lot of time in college trying to convince myself that was normal. I spent a lot of time in college trying to convince myself that I was normal. I convinced myself that I could just force myself to do things and it would be fine, and that ultimately I'd be happy in forcing myself to do things. It was a whole thing. But yeah. I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, I learned about it freshman year. I denied it a lot, and I really didn't start identifying with the label like truly until COVID hit. Ironically, it literally like was when COVID hit, because that's when I first experienced romantic and sexual attraction towards a person. And it wasn't for me. It was kind of one of those things where like I didn't realize I was aroace until I experienced the attraction. Like I wasn't able to identify that way until I experienced the attraction and then realized, oh yeah, I wasn't feeling that before, kind of a thing. So once I experienced attraction and realized I wasn't experiencing that before, I was like, oh yeah, no, girl, you're definitely aroace because, yeah. Anyway, I feel like I'm all over the place. Okay, second question. What has been your experience in the queer community? My experience in the queer community. That's a hard one for me to answer. Just because I do struggle to connect with people, and being introverted, I don't really like go out much. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of my experience with the queer community has been online, which hasn't been the best. I do feel like there's a lot of aspec and validation online. Like I feel like a lot of people say things that perpetuate a matter-normativity, compulsive asexuality, things like that. And like when you call it out, instead of people being like, oh, I'm so sorry, or like, oh, let me educate myself, or like, let me just take responsibility for the harm that I did, it tends to be a lot of invalidation. It tends to be a lot of, well, obviously this wasn't about you. And it's like, well, you're still perpetuating these harmful narratives, kind of a thing. So in terms of that, I really don't feel a lot of safety within the queer community. Because even when I think about joining groups, and this is just talking about me personally in the areas that I've been in, a lot of them don't include asexuality, aromanticism, like at all, really, from what I've seen. Like even when I go to websites and stuff, it's never mentioned. And I feel like if it's not mentioned, I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel safe going there. I do know a lot of people say like advocate for yourself in those spaces for them to include you, and I do get that, but I just don't feel like, unfortunately, I'm still in a space where I have a lot of negative feelings towards my identities, and they bring me a lot of sadness and a lot of depression and things like that. So like I'm just not in a place personally where I want to necessarily have to like fight for my belonging in a group. You know what I mean? Like I just, if I'm looking for a safe space, I just want to go into that safe space. It's not a safe space for me if I have to like fight to belong there. So that's just me personally. It hasn't been the best. And similarly for the second question is, what's been my experience outside of the queer community? And I feel like a lot of it's been very similar. I feel like for me, it's one of those things where both in and outside of the queer community, being aroace, especially for me being aplatonic aroace, it's not something that many people understand. Like even within the aroace community itself, a lot of people are like, what's aplatonicism? I've never heard of that. So I feel like just having that combination, for me, there's a lot of like, I just feel a deep sense that no one understands me, like in my experience. Like, I don't know, like that's just what I feel. Like I feel like no one understands me, and especially no one understands me still wanting love, belonging, connection, and still wanting relationship. Like I feel like sometimes there are people who like maybe like maybe get my vibe, but they're like okay being alone, versus me, it's like no, like I deeply, deeply, deeply want connection with people. I just, because I don't experience platonic attraction, romantic attraction, or sexual attraction, and being touch and sex averse on top of that, it's just very, very hard. And when I talk to people, they don't get it. And that, for me, is just one of the hardest parts. I don't know. It's just hard, one, because the population is so small that there's just like not getting it on like the experiential level. Like there's not people or community that I can go to and I can talk to someone else about the very specific experience of being a platonic aroace. And then on top of that, obviously, you know, I'm a black woman. So it's just a lot that I feel like holding all these different identities that people don't get. But then two, people don't get it, even not just like if they don't experience it themselves, when you're talking to them, I don't know, I guess they don't grasp it, maybe because it's just so different from the allo experience. But it's like, I don't know, just for me, people don't really understand like how lonely it can be. Like I get a lot of like, oh, well, you just have to put yourself out there, and it's like, yeah, well, I don't have support. Like when things don't work out, I only have me. pick myself back up. And it's like, maybe the first time you can do that on your own. Maybe the 5th time you can do that on your own. But I'm 27 years old now, and I've had these identities, since I've been born. So 27 years later, I can't keep putting myself out there when I know how I operate. I know I don't connect with people. It's hard because it's like you want this connection and there's not really anything you can do about it. So yeah. Okay. All right, so the next question, what would be your advice for aplatonic, aroace people who have just discovered their identity? I don't have any advice for you. Shoot, if you have advice, give me the advice. Okay, you're all struggling. But no, genuinely, I don't have any advice. Like, I'm not even being funny. I feel like I'm really bad at being aplatonic aroace. Like, I'm not a good example for you in terms of acceptance, in terms of loving yourself. I'm someone who I genuinely feel like everything's my fault. I feel like if I was not aplatonic aroace, I wouldn't be alone. Just everything I do is wrong. And no one understands. I try to talk to people and tell people that I feel alone, but they just leave. No one understands. They just leave. And it's okay. I get it. I get it. I should be better. I should be better, and I'm not better. I should know how to handle things better. It's okay. I really hate being sad. And I feel bad talking about being sad. I feel like there's enough sadness and invalidation in the aspec community. When I post things that should be happy and like uplifting, but I'm sad, and it's all my fault. I feel like no one understands me being aplatonic and aromantic and asexual, especially being gray and demi and me almost never experiencing those attractions, if ever. It's all my fault and no one gets it. Even though I don't want to be alone. I want to have friends. I want to get married and be a mom. Those things aren't going to happen. I'm going to be by myself. And it's okay. I just wish I could be normal sometimes, but that's alright. And that's not to say that there aren't any positives to the orientation. Like, I do feel like being queer has greatly informed just like how I see the world and how I experience the world. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I'm not saying I want to be straight. No, thank you. But at the same time, it just would be nice to like experience a little bit more attraction than I do. You know what I mean? Like, even if I was just like aroace, maybe drop the aplatonicism, that would be cool. But I don't get to choose.